that they do not recommend the general public wear masks. Wearing a mask improperly can actually increase your risk of getting disease. It can also give you a false sense of security. So we want to make sure we are reserving PPE for the people who most need it.
If you want to put that aside for healthcare workers, we get that. But if it could actually help us, we would love to know.
But again, the data doesn't show that it helps individuals.
That was insulting nonsense. There weren't enough masks. They didn't want to say it. And so they patronized us and devalued their own credibility. The one thing you really need in a crisis, by lying to us in a way that anyone with Google could have disproved. Years of research, including studies by our own government, have found consistently that masks are useful, both for keeping the sick from spreading the disease and keeping the healthy from catching it. That's why they make masks. That's why people use them. The CDC has finally walked back this obvious lie. But it's not just the CDC and our Surgeon General who have lost credibility. The World Health Organization told the same lie. Watch this.
Generally recommended the wearing of masks in public by otherwise well individuals because it has not been up to now associated with any particular benefit. It does have benefits psychologically, socially, and there are social norms around that, and we don't criticize the wearing of masks and have not done so. But there is no specific evidence to suggest that the wearing of masks by the mass population has any particular benefit. In fact, there's some evidence to suggest the opposite in the misuse or wearing a mask properly or fitting it properly or taking it off and all the other risks that are otherwise associated with that.
What a liar. And for perspective, that's the same guy, just in the last segment we showed you on tape, saying that the World Health Organization reserves the right to come into people's homes and take their family members by force. Okay, but wearing masks is wrong. They told you that on March 30th. And already at that point, South Korea and Taiwan had essentially contained their outbreaks. Have they done that? In part by producing a huge number of masks and making people wear them. But the World Health Organization was still pushing that nonsense. That's not a surprise. It shouldn't surprise you, because you know the World Health Organization has spread many lies, including China's lie that coronavirus couldn't transmit person to person, that the virus was under control, that travel restrictions were just racism. In fact, you could argue that coronavirus might have been slowed or stopped by now if the World Health Organization wasn't so incompetent. At times, it seems like they're doing whatever they can to keep it spreading. Senator Rick Scott represents the state of Florida. He'd like to investigate the World Health Organization for what it's done in response to this pandemic. Senator, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Tell us why you believe the World Health Organization is in part culpable for this disaster.
Well, first off, they just work for China, communist China. First, they said on January 14th in a tweet that there's no evidence that there was human-to-human transmission. Lie. Then they said, like, I think on the 20th or something, China's doing a great job. Lie. I asked them, and then when Trump did the right thing by doing the travel ban, they attacked Trump for doing the wrong thing. I asked them to do an investigation of China back in February. I started talking about this like you did back in January. Did they ever do it? No. If they had done their job, everybody would have gotten more ready. We wouldn't have shut down this economy, and we wouldn't have all these people dead all over the world. So I want an investigation. I'm on Homeland Security. I've talked to the chairman, Ron Johnson. He's agreed to do it. We're going to investigate why did they do what they did? What was their purpose? And why are we, as American taxpayers, giving them some of our dollars?
Yeah, I mean, Bill Gates, who is the single largest donor, I think he gives more than anybody other than the United States World Health Organization, is out there this week saying the lockdown needs to continue indefinitely. Why are the people affiliated with the World Health Organization still treated as serious people when so many of them are liars and buffoons?
Well, first off, one thing, we should never, ever buy one more product from China. When you buy a product from China, you have to say, that's the group of people, right, that completely lied to us and forced us to shut down our economy and killed American citizens and Italian and Spaniards, on top of stealing all of our jobs before. They lie, and the WHO is there right up there with them, helping them. They parroted whatever communist China said.
How long are we going to continue to fund this organization, do you think?
I hope this is the last year. And by the way, not only do I not want to fund the WHO, first, let's get the information. I can't imagine it's going to get any better than what we already know. But why are we funding organizations that are lying to us? I think we pay about 21% of their budget. China is way less than 1% of their budget. So what's going on here? Why are they parroting what China is doing? And did they follow their protocol? I doubt that they followed their protocol for pandemics. I bet the WHO didn't do it. And why didn't they do it? So, and by the way, we've got to create an American delivery system for pandemics, for protective gear, for ventilators, for therapeutics. Stop this stuff of relying on China for anything.
Senator, thanks so much for that. Great to see you tonight.
Thanks, Tucker.
So as you well know, this pandemic began in China. There is some evidence from the Chinese that it came from a lab in Wuhan accidentally. They certainly lied about it at the early stages. They told us it couldn't be spread person to person. They lied about how many cases they had, how many people died from it. They got the World Health Organization to endorse those lies. Thanks to all of this, the rest of the world had inaccurate information about the Wuhan coronavirus and was unprepared, and many thousands died. So this pandemic is the direct fault of the government of China. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying or shilling for an appalling regime. Now the world has suffered tens of trillions of dollars in economic damage, and China, of course, should foot the bill for that. How could we make that happen? Gordon Chang is the author of The Coming Collapse of China, and he joins us tonight. Gordon, thanks so much for coming on. This is one of those ideas that sounds on the face of it far-fetched just because people doubt justice will ever be done in any circumstance. But there are ways that we could make China pay for this. What are they?
Well, there's certainly ways, Tucker. And one of them is that China has a lot of liquid assets around the world. It has more than $1 trillion in treasuries, for instance, and it has money in euros, pounds, yen, Swiss francs, probably Canadian dollars. And if we acted with the issuers of those currencies, we could seize a fair amount of money. Now, it would never compensate the world. You just can't compensate the lives that have been lost. And even the monetary compensation is not enough for the trillions of dollars in damages that you talked about. But we need to create a deterrent. We need to deter future regime leaders from thinking that they can do something like this and get away with it.
So you mentioned that they hold over $1 trillion in treasuries, in our debt. Why wouldn't we just unilaterally forgive our own debt?
Well, if we were to do that, and we could easily do it, China would do a couple things. First of all, it would say that it was a repudiation of debt, and then they would bash us. They would say that we're not a responsible member of the global financial system. They would then try to dethrone the dollar. Now, I can understand what you're thinking, but the point is that we can sort of avoid those types of charges if we work with the issuers of the other major currencies, and then China is left with no arguments in that regard. It sounds hard to do that, but nonetheless, when we see what's happening in England right now, especially to the Prime Minister, I think the anger there is enough so that we could actually build that coalition to actually get the other issuers to work with us.
Boy, I think that sounds absolutely worth doing. Gordon Chang, thank you tonight and for every night you've been on. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Tucker.
There's mounting evidence tonight that hydroxychloroquine may work as a treatment for the coronavirus. The press, for reasons that are still not clear, doesn't want you to know that and have been consistently hiding that and downplaying it and lying about it for weeks. What's the cost of lying about a medicine? We'll tell you after the break. For that, though, a look at Washington, D.C. from earlier today, courtesy of Mark Batista.